September 5th at 5 o'clock, and I'll call to order the work session for the Glynn County Board of Education. Before we begin, I'd like to take just a moment to extend condolences to the community and the school system in Barrow County for the incident that occurred yesterday. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Blackerby for items of information.
All right, and we'll start with Ms. Cody with the financial update.
Okay, so we just had one budget amendment in July for the governor's school security grant in the amount of $801,100. This was an increase to the revenue and expenditure budgets. And then as a side note, I just wanted to mention that the budget amendment for the additional decrease in the millage rate will be reflected in the August financials. The budget position as of July is 8.3%. And our year-to-date revenues are at 3.8% of budget, and the expenditures are at 3% of budget. So at this time of year, we would expect to see our revenues and expenditures below the budget position because some of the July revenues and expenditures were accrued into fiscal year 2024. June sales tax collections were received in July in the amount of $3,457,624. Because this was for June collections, this revenue was reported in the fiscal year 24 financials for East Loss 4. Sales tax collections received in July of 2024 were 4.3% higher than July of 2023. Any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the investment analysis. So the July interest earned was $707,456.15. The general operating account balance declined $7.8 million, which is typical of this time of year, and is mostly being invested at a money market rate of 5.17%. The building fund and the workers' comp fund declined due to transfers to pay July invoices. And the East Loss balances continue to maintain steady amounts of interest income. The remaining securities are maturing in the next 3 to 6 months and are being placed into money market accounts yielding 4.85%.
Any questions?
Questions?
No questions? We'll move on to the flexible benefits update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This month's flexible benefits update, excited to share with you. We held our plan review meeting with American Fidelity representatives on August the 29th as scheduled. We discussed our current options versus our future options or possible options, including group and individual plans, as well as possible options for our district to entertain that would possibly help our staff. We did discuss the open enrollment period, and I know, Mr. Hosey, last month you asked, is it possible for us to extend that if we need it? That is the case. We can extend it if we need. We plan to match the state health benefit plan open enrollment season, which will be October the 15th, 2024 through November the 8th, 2024. We do have flexibility again if we need to extend that because they work for us. So we get to call the shots in regards to that. But remember too that they'll be doing one-on-one counseling during that time, which I think will be beneficial, and Ms. Cody does too. We think will be beneficial to our staff members because it will allow them to truly talk to somebody about what they want and what their goals are for their families and be able to buy the things that they need so that they're not over or underinsured. So we're looking forward to that. Our next steps include Our principal and leadership breakfast and meeting on September the 12th, 2024, where they will talk to the principals and other district leadership. Again, open enrollment will begin in October, and then our flexible benefits will actually begin January 2025. Ms. Cody, you have anything? You have any questions?
The principal leadership breakfast and meeting, will it be held here at the,
It will be here at the box, yes, ma'am. And it's not just a meeting there, it's not a meeting just for them. It's actually the monthly principals meeting, and they'll just be talking to the principals about kind of what to expect, and introducing themselves to our principals and our district leadership.
Any other questions? We'll move on to Dr. Nelson with the strategic plan update.
Oh,
I'm not touching
No, she's got it.
sorry, there's a bad glare. Good evening. So tonight, we're just gonna kind of do a brief overview of our strategic plan, just a little bit of the background and history and kind of where you can locate that. And then each month, I think, or every other month, with whatever your pleasure is, we can kind of review how we're progressing through our strategic plan. So we currently have, our district currently has a 5-year strategic plan that began in the 2022-2023 school year. And updates have been made as new laws are enacted, or we have directed state policy that changes that happen over time. And a couple examples I put in there for you are the House Bill 538, the Georgia Early Literacy Act that we've discussed several times in here, and Senate Bill 48, the Dyslexia Bill. And an example of that that impacted our strategic plan, together those prompted the creation of a new performance objective, which we can look at in a few minutes, for this school year under the area of coherent instructional systems. Mostly the changes typically are small changes to the tense and verbiage, or a shift in the status progress. So for example, we might devise a strategy one year and then we shift to monitoring that same strategy the following year, or we initiate a program and then the next year we continue the program. So those are typically the kind of changes we see from year to year during our strategic planning. And what I really want to point out too is that our strategic goal areas, those 5 areas that you see here, I'm going to kind of point to the pink area of the circle here. This is the Georgia System of Continuous Improvement Framework that Godot has established. And these 5 areas should look familiar to you. Glynn County Schools has a big emphasis on maintaining an alignment with our Board of Education meetings are structured this way. Our cabinet directors meetings are structured after these same 5 focus areas. The newsletters that we put out, our communication, we try to maintain those same focus areas continually throughout our communication pieces. So how you get to it. On our district website, there's a strategic plan tab under the district website link. So I'm going to click on that. When you click there, it takes you straight into the strategic plan page. Here, there's a little bit of background about how the plan's developed. There's a link there to, again, the Georgia System of Continuous Improvement that talks a bit about that and how that was developed. The Cognia key characteristics. Cognia has changed brands a few times over the years. It was previously Advanced Ed. Before that, it was SAC. So we know about a few different monikers, but that's the current name of our performance standards for accreditation that we align to, and then also those Georgia Vision Project standards that we align our strategic plan to. Talks a little bit about the process, and then here we have a graphic that just kind of shows on the left, these are our focus areas, again, those same Georgia Continuous Improvement Process focus areas, and then these are our key objectives. Moving down, these are the meat and potatoes. This is our actual strategic plan. And every month, the cabinet directors meet together and we review each of these areas. And then the status is updated. So you can see green is completed. This kind of yellowy, orangey color is in progress. And then you'll see some that are not started. So you can see our focus areas, our performance objectives, the different initiatives, again, the status. And then in the details column is where I've linked the Georgia Vision Project alignment. And then just for historic sake, as we get past this, down at the bottom, we can see our year 1 and year 2, because again, we're on year 3 of our strategic plan. So year one, it just kind of, it's just like a snapshot of the map, just the bigger pieces, the focus areas, and the objectives. And just to kind of show you what I meant by small changes, if we look at year one and year two, you can see that let me get back to year one. In year one, we're devising online agendas for consistency here. And then in year two, we're monitoring online agendas. So those are typically the changes we see from year to year in our strategic plan. They're usually very small incremental changes. It's only when there's a big change in law or state policy that we have to make larger changes. We try to keep it consistent from year to year. So that's kind of our brief overview for tonight, unless anybody has any questions. And then as we continue to monitor the strategic plan, we can get into more of the details and the status and how we're progressing through it. Okay.
Overall, how are we moving forward? I mean, what would be your assessment of how are we doing?
We're doing well right now. We only have a few areas that are not started, and those are typical because we've not really started some of the larger monitoring at the schools. Of course, we monitor all the time, but some of the bigger monitoring that happens once, like bigger test scores and things like that are back. So there are only, I think, five specific areas that have not been started.
Are we progressing with our goals?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the facilities update. Somebody else is controlling.
I think that was you. There it is. Is that the work session?
Yes, go back to the top.
Oh, no, it's
High-speed internet we have.
All right. We'll start off with the East Splash projects, and we're in the phase right now where we're wrapping up our major summer projects. The BHS driveway, the new bus loop, and parking is now operational. We do not have the canopy yet. As I said before, that was kind of a supply chain issue. It's going to take a little bit longer. It is in the manufacturing phase, and we're hoping to receive it in the next couple of months, and then it will be installed probably over here Thanksgiving break or Christmas break, whenever we have the biggest lapse of time there, to make sure that we don't interfere with school operations during that time. At St. Simon's Phase 5.
On the BHS, the loop, is it in use right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't speak to, I have not actually seen a bus go through there, but the parking lot, staff's parking in there, and it is ready to go. I have not watched anybody unload a bus there yet. Yes. St. Simon's Elementary Phase 5, which was the renovation of the old 1943 building, and the primary portion of that we were waiting on. We started school in the classrooms. We were waiting on the dining area, the cafeteria to be complete. We did begin serving lunch in there on Tuesday when we came back from Labor Day. So this week we've occupied that area, and now we're just working through punch list items on the inside of the building. On the exterior of the building, we do still have some site work, areas to clean up. We're still pouring some sidewalks and doing some final work out there that we could not do until we got a lot of the construction equipment out of the way. So that'll be ongoing over the next few weeks. Same thing there, we do have a portion of paving over on the parking lot that we share with the church that's adjacent to the school. And we do have some work to do over there that we'll probably either have to do on a weekend or on this upcoming October holiday, that long weekend we have, because we don't want to disrupt the church operations or the school's operations during the week. So that will wrap that up, though, as soon as we get that portion of the project complete. And at Satilla Marsh, we're occupied all areas of the building, and we're now just working through the punch list at Satilla Marsh. And so now we can start planning for the next round of projects as we work through the year. From the local capital fund projects, the largest thing we have going is Wing 2. They're currently hanging sheetrock in there. We had some small delays with the weather with the roof, which kind of held us back. roof is sealed in. They're, should be finished with the windows by the end of the week, and again, the sheet rock should be up, and then we can start with the interior finishes at that point. Any questions on the projects? That's on the good report. Good, I've already covered the projects. The next biggest thing is our collections. And as you can see, we collected the numbers are kind of flipped there, so it's kind of a little bit hard to read, but our August receipt, which was actually our July receipts, was 3.4 million, which as compared to last year was 3.7 million. But looking back, for whatever reason, last July those receipts were extremely high. I'm not sure what the difference was during that time, but it's on track for the way it was the previous years, so a little bit above those areas. Any questions on good report or collections?
Collection will finish in what, September? Is that the,
September, yes. September would be the end of the quarter, so that's when the collections will end, but we will report out on this chart through October because this lags a month. So that's why I was saying the August 24 column is actually July collections, but it's distributed in August. So we'll have distributions through October. Okay? Any other questions? We have recommendation for approval of a contract for John Tootin and Associates. This is for the design work on an addition that we are proposing for the Brunswick High School field house. This would be an addition, essentially, if you're looking at the front of the field house, it would be where the sand pit is now between the current field house and the parking lot. It would extend off of that and will amount to essentially a weight room and then a small turfed area similar to what's at Glynn Middle that Glynn Academy has in the old Glynn Middle gym. And it's our standard architectural contract with a 6% fee on the cost of work. Again, we won't know the cost of work till the design is complete, and then we bid the project out. Any questions?
I think the contract gives an approximate square footage of the facility.
14,000, I believe, is what's
Right.
listed in there.
So that's what it will be with the expansion and what is
No,
currently
that- no,
there? Or
that's
that's
the-
just the expansion?
That's the
for it?
expansion. That's kind of the maximum footprint of the expansion, yes.
Okay. That's pretty good.
If you think of an elementary gym, it'd be a little larger than that. Any questions? Moving on to the SRO vehicle purchase recommendation. We would like to purchase 2 additional of the police interceptor Explorers. I believe it was in 2021, we purchased, I think it was 7 of these. We currently still have 11 vehicles that are between 2008 and 2011 models, a couple of which are in dire need of some repairs that are beyond their value. And we did receive pricing from Wade Ford on the state contract, and they actually have these vehicles on the lot. So unlike many of the state contract purchases we made recently with vehicles, we've had to wait 6 or 8 months or longer. These are on the lot if we do approve the purchase, and we can get those in fairly short order. And
That's 92,000 for 2, right?
correct, 92,000 for both of the vehicles together, not 92,000 apiece.
Would they come equipped with radios and all that, or?
I don't think they have the radios, but they have most of these are the police interceptor models, so they do have the majority of the equipment needed. Yes. Any other questions? All right, we will move on to, I guess, Mr. Deppenhart, Dr. Deppenhart with the CTA Perkins budget.
Good evening.
Good
So
evening.
this is our annual briefing that I'm required to give by Georgia Department of Ed to gain your approval to accept federal funds through CTAE. So this first slide is more for your information. This is largely state funds that are allocated to us here in Glynn County. First off, this year, we're going to be receiving approximately $134,000 in CTE Extended Day. This pays the salary of 24 of our CTAE teachers to do extra hours outside of school to support our career technical student organizations such as FBLA or Skills USA. We're receiving $4,000 in extended year. This offsets the summer hours that we use to work for our work-based learning coordinators, Robin Rhodes and Susan Falk. We're receiving $20,000 in Ag Extended Day, which funds the extended day activities for FFA for 2 high school and 1 middle school Ag teachers, as well as the $16,000 in extended year, which covers their summer days for the same 3 teachers. Our apprenticeship grant this year is just over $37,000. That helps offset the salary of our youth apprenticeship coordinator, Susan Falk. And then we're receiving $28,000 in our CTA supervision grant, which offsets the salary of the CTA director. We did receive the full allocation this year of Perkins Plus. This is a $20,000 grant, and it helps fund our EOPAs, which have gone up tremendously over the last couple of years as we've added the number of pathway completers and increased well up above 650 at this point. Our costs for EOPAs have gotten in the neighborhood of $40,000 a year. So this $20,000 helps offset that. This year, we've also received $15,000 in industry certification funds. We will be certifying 2 programs this year. First, the Culinary Arts program at GICA will get certified initially. That is a $10,000 grant. And then we will be recertifying the welding program at GICA, which is a $5,000 grant. Next slide, please. Now, this slide is the actual Perkins Improvement Grant. This is the federal funds that I'm asking you to request. I'm requesting for you to approve me accepting from the Fed to the state. This year, we're receiving $139,800 in federal Perkins dollars. This is actually down from last year. Although our FTE count went up for CTAE, this number is based off a lot of factors to include Title I numbers and things like that. Last year, we had about 154,000, so we're about $15,000 less, but still enough that I can make it work. And then along with that is a breakdown of how I expect to spend these funds. We'll spend about $28,000 on instructional travel to support the CTSOs. Most of the equipment money this year will be invested into computer technology. We're going to spend about $32,000. I had to buy new Chromebook cards for both Glynn Academy and Brunswick High, as well as a new video server for GICA. We will spend $24,000 in instructional registration. Most of that will go to additional cost of EOPAs, because again, those, as we've increased programs, those have gone up tremendously. For staff travel, we'll spend in the neighborhood of $41,000. With inflation, that has been another big expense. Every time I send a teacher out to a conference, it costs about $1,500. Godot tends to pick the most expensive hotels to host these conferences, and it's just gotten quite expensive. And then we'll have about $10,000 in registration for the same conferences. That costs between $300 to $500 a conference. The CTA director travel, that has to be held out in a separate line item, because with Perkins dollars, you're limited to 5% of your total allocation. That's the maximum that can be spent on a CTAE director. So I will have a budget of $3,600 for my travel, and then the remaining $437 to cover the cost of any of my registrations. That is all I have, subject to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller with the 21st Century Grant.
So I'm coming tonight with good news. It's time again for your approval to accept the funds from our 21st Century Community Learning Grant. We worked with the Boys and Girls Club this past year to write that grant, and it was approved. So we are approved for a K-2 grant of $350,000, a 3-5 grant of $350,000. We also added sixth grade this year. So all 4 middle schools will have the program in place for students who qualify for those after-school services. The after-school services are at Altama, Burroughs Millette, and Goodyear, as well as all 4 middle schools for sixth graders. So it's a wonderful opportunity for these students. They spend about an hour in tutoring at the school 4 days a week, and then they go to the Boys and Girls Club or either the teen center until like 6:30, where they're served dinner and everything before going home. So it's a great opportunity for some of our most at-risk students. So I come to you tonight asking your approval on receiving these funds for this grant. And any questions?
And that's the end of our agenda, so. Oh, no, sorry. Thank you. Ms. Haywood, with policy JR.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're asking the board to consider laying policy JR, student records, on the table for 30 days. We just have a couple of revisions to the current policy. This policy is based on federal law regarding the FERPA, Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, as well as PPRA, our Protection for People Rights Amendment. Just a couple of changes that we'd like to make to the current policy and the way that we've identified those changes. The yellow is just the revisions that we've made to the current policy in wording only, and the strike through is what's in the current policy that we'd like to remove. And so we'd ask that the board please allow us to lay this on the table for 30 days for consideration, and ask for your consideration for it to be adopted at the October meeting. And certainly, any questions that you have relative to those revisions. And again, thank you, Mr. Madala, for your feedback on this policy and the revisions that we've proposed.
So this is basically allowing, somebody in the yearbook or a football program or something like that to be able to be punished unless, well, I say punished, published, unless a parent says no.
Correct. That is basically what it is. We identify as a part of FERPA, we have to identify what is directory information as a district, and we identify what those items are, which this is what we've already kind of established. And if parents have the right to say whether or not they want their children to be published, and they provide us that information within a certain amount of time. So we've just kind of changed a little bit of the verbiage to identify what information we release to our vendors and the process by which that's done. So yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Black.
Now that's the end of our agenda.
Okay, thank y'all for the presentations. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session for personnel and tribunal appeal.
That's school safety, if that's it, please.
Okay, and Mr. Halsey's requesting to add school safety.
Illegal.
Illegal, maybe, possible.
All right, personnel, legal, school safety, tribunal appeal.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Edgy to enter into executive session for those 4 reasons, and a second by Ms. Gibbons. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous at 5:29. Turn to open session.
So
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Halsey and second by Ms. Gibbons at 6:24. Nothing further, so I'll entertain a motion to.
we gotta vote on that one.
Oh,
Come back to
Vote
it.
us in, right? What are you
Vote
saying?
back
I
in.
was-
that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Oh, vote, yes,
Yeah.
vote on it.
yes.
Ms. Gibbons, you ready to come back?
Can't get out till we get in.
Okay,
Back in?
I didn't see your hand. It's unanimous. So
Oh, you did
6:24.
not?
Yeah.
I
Now
thought-
I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So,
Second.
It's your choice.
yes, what's on?
It's your choice. Okay, I think we have a motion and a second
We do definitely.
by the pair next to me.
I concur.
Okay, so all in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting? It is unanimous at 6:25.